Hello everybody, welcome to ChinFat. In this episode I'm going to be showing, I've had a couple of requests on asking about like a proxy workflow with ProRes files. What I kind of wanted to show is two different ways of doing proxy workflow within Premiere Pro. I've kind of shown these at different times in the past, but I'm kind of pulling them together here and showing you both types of workflow that you may want to do and take into consideration. If you use the proprietary Premiere Pro workflow, there's a couple things you got to know is that you're going to be saving your proxy files and your high quality media to the same hard drive. If you open up the project, because you're going to be able to flip a switch. In fact, it's this little switch right here. You're going to be able to flip a switch, and it'll toggle between the proxy footage and the original footage, and which is kind of beneficial. But if you want to take that proxy footage, say you have just like a terabyte of footage, and you want to take your proxy footage and you just want to take that home and work on your laptop rather than at a facility or a studio or something like that, then you got to go the old style proxy workflow. Because if you use the Premiere Pro proprietary workflow, once again, you have to bring the high quality and the low quality footage with you at the same time. This with the old style, on which I'm going to show first, you can take just the proxy footage home on its own separate hard drive, edit the movie on and do it really smoothly, and then bring it back later on to the facility that you work at and relink it. So let's show that process first. So let's go ahead and import the footage here. I'm not going to be showing various types of media like Red Media and Alexa Media or Canon Raw or anything like that. I'm just showing a simple ProRes footage this time. The process will be the same. I've got other tutorials on how to do red footage and get that and prep that. Right now I'm just going to import this footage I have for an interview here. All my footage that I want to encode to proxy footage. And let's take a look at this footage once I import it. First of all, let's take a look at the size of the footage in here. I'm going to go to Interviews and look at the size of these files here. This was shot on ProRes 422, and you'll notice the file size of these for footage that's like 5 to 10 minutes worth of footage. You get file sizes like 17 gig, 34 gig. This instance 40 gig for probably like a 10, 11, 12 minute clip here. So these are fairly large files, kind of bulky to work with, and especially if you're working in like ProRes HQ, you're going to have a hard time. It's going to take quite a toll on your system. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to encode these to proxy, and I'm going to select a clip here, and we're going to show in the preview area and take a look at the attributes. If that's not showing when you select a clip, you go to this little menu drop down and tell it to show preview area, and you can look that this is 3840 by 2160, so it's UHD footage, not quite 4K footage, but pretty close to 4K footage. And a couple other things we can look at. I'm going to right click and we're going to go to Properties and look at the properties here. Properties, if I move up here, we're going to scroll down and it will show the QuickTime details. We want to go under the compressor. Take a look. This is Apple ProRes 422. So this is pretty high quality footage, fairly large files. You can even get larger than that if you go to ProRes HQ. But this was shot on an Atomos recorder into ProRes 422. So it's kind of large files. But we're going to re-encode these to smaller files so we can take them home and edit them. And we're going to do it on a separate hard drive. So what I've got here is I've already got, and if you're going to do this workflow, I recommend having two different hard drives connected to your system. One that you're going to have the original high quality footage on, and one that you're going to have the low quality footage on, because this will make it easier to reconnect your footage later on down the line. So I'm going to select all my footage, and we're going to send it to Media Encoder. Now, one thing you're going to want to know here is when you're going to be exporting this out, one very important attribute that you need to match. First of all, you can bring down the resolution, but you always have to match frame rate perfectly, the exact same frame rate, and you have to match audio, and you have to match the nature of the audio channels. Right now, this, since it was on the Atomos, is 4 mono channels. If this was a stereo channel or 1 mono channel or 2 mono channels or 4 mono channels, you got to match this. Very, very important to reconnecting this footage later on. So remember that. We're going to go, this is 3840 by 2160, and we're going to cut that footage in half. So if we cut this footage in half, 3840 divided by 2 equals 1920, and 2160 divided in half is 1080. So if we cut this in half, the aspect ratio would say 16 by 9. 3840 divided by 2160 gives us our aspect ratio of 1.78 to 1, or 16 by 9. If you go to whole numbers. So if you take it down to 1920 by 1080, 1920 divided by 1080 equals 1.78 to 1. So it's the same aspect ratio if we take it to 1920 by 1080. If we wanted to, we could even take this down as far as 1280 by 720. That's even smaller than 1920 by 1080 and still 16 by 9 if we wanted to even run faster. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight all these clips here. We're going to Proxy. I'm going to hit Command M or Control M on a PC. It will open this export settings window, and we can go under Format here, and we can go to, we want to keep this at QuickTime because now PC and Mac both do QuickTime or do QuickTime ProRes, which is nice. So I'm going to go QuickTime. I'm going to go down to Preset, and we're going to change this to ProRes Proxy. This is going to take it down to probably less than a quarter of the quality here. ProRes Proxy. I'm going to export video and audio. I'm going to go down under my video tab. I'm going to change my resolution. I'm going to uncheck this, and I'm going to do it 1920 by 1080. I'm going to uncheck this here, and I'm going to go over to my resolution, and I'm going to change this to, I'm going to keep this link on it. You don't want a little cross through it like that. You want to uncross like that because that will maintain aspect ratio. I'm going to type in 1920. If I move my mouse out here and click in the gray area, it will update the bottom proportionally and make it 1920 by 1080. And if we want to go 1280, even smaller, let's do these 1280, why not? And click that away from that. Now it's 1280 by 720. So the resolution is going to be small, but it'll be good enough quality to edit, and we're going to reattach it to the high quality footage later on. We're going to keep the frame rate the same, field order the same, aspect ratio all the same there. Pixel aspect ratio actually. And then we're going to go to audio. So we've changed the codec, we've changed the resolution. We've kept the frame rate the same. We're going to go to audio, and right down here it says it wants to export it out to by default it will export it out to a stereo channel. This will mess you up if you don't change this and match your audio settings. These are all the same. You got to make sure that these are all the same. Those are all 4-channel. I know that, I've looked at them. So I'm going to change this top one here to mono. That gives me 1 channel, and I can go plus, plus, plus. Now I've got 4 mono channels. That is identical to this the nature of the audio on this clip on these clips up here. Make sure you know what your audio settings are, or it will not reattach once you've done all your editing later on. So fair warning. Now that we're done, we can hit Q. And the last thing I want to do here is, if you want to know that your proxy footage is proxy footage for sure, I kind of like to burn a timecode window into it, a small timecode window. So I'm going to go to Effects, and that way you know that the proxy footage is just proxy footage and not the original footage. It's a way of kind of telling the difference between the two. Or you can watermark it. You can do a watermark as well if you want to. Under image overlay, you can do that. You can select an image that you've chosen and do a watermark. I like timecode overlay. It's kind of quick and easy. Just bottom center. You can put it bottom right if you want to, kind of get it out of the way. Change the size. It's going to get the timecode source from the media file. And now, so I've done the effects, video, change the resolution. We have this at 1280 by 720. This is 1280 by 720 ProRes Proxy under Video tab. The audio matches the 4 mono channels that we have on the file. So we are set here. So I'm going to hit Q. It's going to send my proxy footage over to Media Encoder. Media Encoder will open up, it will load, and then it will load your clips in there. It'll take about 30 seconds or so to do that. And once that's done, I've got my custom settings in here for QuickTime. I want to change my location. So I'm going to select all my footage here, Command A or Control A. I'm going to go to Output File and click on one of these names. Click on it, and we're going to change the location that it's saving these files. So right now, this footage is on my what's called Mr. Fancy drive. I'm going to go to my Genie drive, and I'm going to create a new folder. I'm going to create a new folder in here, and we're going to call these Interview Proxies. But the name of my project was just Interview. I know it's a very normal name, but I'm going to create a folder. If you're creating a production folder, you may wish, and you're doing different days of shoots, you may want to have day 1, day 2, day 3, and so on in there for your footage organized, and then you'll want to do day 1 proxies, day 2 proxies, and so on to have everything organized. Actually, I would keep the names of the folder. I'm going to keep the name of my main folder proxies, and I would not name the folders proxies underneath that. I just have mirrored names like day 1, day 2, day 3. Just have the main folder renamed that you know it's the proxy folder. So I'm going to hit choose. And now that location is saved, and I can hit play and let it start encoding. And down here you notice it is burning that timecode window into my video as it's encoding. So I'm going to let this finish encoding. We're going to come back and look at the difference between the files. Okay, so now that I'm done here, I'm going to go to Premiere. I can close this project. I'm going to go to File, Close Project. And you can save it if you want to, no big deal, but I'm just going to say no because I don't need that footage anymore. So I'm just going to shut down Premiere Pro completely. So now I'm going to eject the drive that I'm not using here. Eject my Mr. Fancy drive. That's got the high quality footage on it, and we're going to eject that. Now this is my hard drive here. I can take this home now, this hard drive home. So now I can take this project home here, and I can start editing with it. So I'm going to start at Premiere. Let's pretend I've ejected this drive and I've taken it home. I'm going to open up Premiere. I'm going to start a new project now on my home computer. Pretend that this is on a different computer here. I'm going to go to my drive here. We're going to go to my interview proxies, and I'm going to start a new project here. I'm going to choose this. I'm going to say we're going to call this doc editing because interview with a documentary here. So doc editing. I'm going to hit OK. I'm going to import my footage here. I'm going to import my proxy footage now. And these are named exactly the same as my original footage with a .mov, but these are now the smaller resolution files. So they have the exact same time codes, the exact same duration, and now I've got my media here. I can drag all those to a timeline. Move through it and notice how they have 4 channels just like my previous files, but they've got this time code window right here. So that time code window demonstrates that this is my proxy footage. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hurry and just do a quick little edit. I'm not going to really do a big fancy edit. I'm just going to do a little edit to show you how, once you're done editing, how you get it back to relink to the high quality footage. Alright, now I've got just a little rough edit here. Let's say I've been editing at home and I've been editing this proxy footage. The nice thing about this proxy footage is that it works really, really smoothly, really quickly. It responds really fast, and you can do it even on a computer that's not like a really super fast computer. ProRes Proxy, which is 1280 by 720 resolution. So if you look at my resolution here, select one of these, you can see it's 1280 by 720. And same audio attributes here and same frame rate. Now I've got this edit done, and we're going to take this back to, and we can even put like a fade in at the end and fade in with our audio and a little fade out at the end as well. So we've got my little 4-minute interview here that I've cut down, and got a little fade in at the beginning and so on. So say I've done some editing. I got a fancy edit here. I know this isn't very fancy, just kind of a rough edit, but we're going to take this back. We'll say we've done our editing, and we're going to take this back and relink it to the studio footage now, to the high quality footage at the studio facility or my other hard drive. So I'm going to go, probably the best way to do this, that's going to ignore the attributes of resolution, is we're going to go to File, and we're going to export. You could use a project file, but it's still going to think that the resolution is 1280 by 720 when it's actually 4K footage. So we're going to export it out to Final Cut Pro XML. There's a universal kind of EDL document that'll move the edits over from Premiere to that will move the edit over with the ignoring things like resolution. So I'm going to name this. Let's name this interview. It's going to export out my timeline here, interview. It's going to send this over to a universal project file. So I'm going to hit save. It's exporting out the Final Cut Pro XML. So now I can close this. Save that, yes. I'll go to the Genie because I'm going to disconnect this hard drive. So now I'm going to go to my interview folder. So I should have saved that ADL onto my desktop or something. I'm going to grab the interview XML right there. And that's the Final Cut Pro XML right there. I'm going to eject my Genie drive, and I'm going to reconnect my other drive here. So now I'm going to start a new project that I'm going to save onto my my original high quality drive. I'm going to browse, go to that drive, go to the interviews, and we can call this interview rough cut or something like that, whatever we want to call it. Hit OK and save it. And now I'm going to import my Final Cut Pro XML. I'm going to go to File, and we're going to go Import. I'm going to go to Import. I'm going to go to my desktop where I saved it. And there's my interview XML. I'm going to select that. It's going to locate the media. It's going to locate the media that's in my folder right there. And now look what it's done. This is the way to go. The Final Cut Pro is preferred just because the Final Cut Pro file is an XML file. The project file, if you use the Premiere Pro project file, it's going to think that this footage here is still the footage that's been relinked here is still 1280 by 720. It's a little glitch that it has with Premiere. So the Final Cut Pro Universal XML file will import the footage. The import footage will think it automatically found the location of the footage here because it was in the interview folder. It's pretty smart there. Found the footage, but now it knows that this footage is 3840 by 2160. If I double click on this, of course, it does not have the time code button anymore. I can open this, but my timeline is still going to be 1280 by 720, which we can fix pretty easily. I can open up this now, and as you scroll through it, notice that the footage is now zoomed up because it thinks this is a 720 timeline, and it thinks that this is the footage was originally 720, but now it is 4K. So we can change that now just by changing the timeline setting to match these clips. There's a couple ways of doing that. This is kind of an easy way. Just right-click and go to Sequence Settings. I'm going to pull down this editing mode, and I'm going to scroll up, and I'm going to do a custom one. And with the custom one, I'm going to do a custom frame size. If we want to remember what the custom frame size is, I can select this clip right there, 3840 by 2160. So that's pretty easy there. So I'm going to right-click 3840 by 2160. So I'm going to go scroll up and do custom, and we're going to do a custom frame size here, 3840 by 2160. And there we go. And I can just hit OK. Changes the preview file format or the preview frame size will require preview files to be deleted. That's fine. Hit OK. And boom, now my timeline is back to 3840 by 2160. I've got my same edit in here, and it's reconnected the high quality footage, and now this is accessing the original 4K ProRes 422 footage. That is the old style way to go, and that's kind of the way I prefer most of the time, because I can take the footage away and I can edit it as I please without being connected to the original hard drive or having to have the high quality footage with you at the same time as the low quality footage, which can take up a lot of hard drive space. And then you have to spend all that time transferring it. If you're taking it home, then take it home, so it's kind of a pain in the butt. But let's show you that way as well. So we're going to start from scratch here, and we're going to start all over. I've got my footage in here. I'll just delete my timeline. And here we've got our interview footage. And we're going to start all over here. I'm just going to delete everything. I'm going to import my high quality footage again. Go to my interview folder, grab these files here, import them. I can save my project file. Let's save it as, I'm going to do it as my original project file, the interview rough cut here, which I spelled Rouch cut, which is great. Great way of spelling rough is Rouch. So I'm going to highlight all my footage here. Okay, so now we're going to use the Premiere Pro proprietary way. I'm going to right click and we're going to go to Proxy, and we're going to create proxies. This will open up their proprietary window here. And finally, we'll open this up and it'll say, do you want to format to QuickTime? It's got some old style presets in here that you can still do like ProRes Proxy. There's a couple of presets in here. But since this is a 4-channel mono audio, I'm going to have to create my own custom preset that I'm going to import in here. And we're going to do it by adding the ingest preset. But you're going to have to do one that you've created as an EPR inside of Media Encoder. So this is a little bit complex, so I'm going to open up. See, that's kind of why I like the old style anyway, because it's a little less complex. I'm going to open up Media Encoder. Once Media Encoder's open here, so under System Presets, I'm going to scroll down to a QuickTime file here. We're going to go down to QuickTime, which I can find under Broadcast. This is QuickTime here to start with. I'm going to right-click, and we're going to do Create Encoding Preset. We're going to have to create an ingest preset, but it's going to have to be based, this is confusing, but it has to be based off of an encoding preset. So I select the encoding preset. It brings up the window we're familiar with. We can call this, I'll call this Interview. This new preset we're going to create, QuickTime Proxy. So this is my new preset I'm creating. I'm going to go Format. We're going to go QuickTime. I'm going to go based on Apple ProRes. We're going to go ProRes Proxy. I'm going to go under Video, and we're going to change our resolution. Uncheck that, and we're going to make this 1280. You can do 1920 by 1080, which is fine, but I'm going to do 1280 by 720 under the video because I want it a little smaller so it runs even faster. But 1920 by 1080 works just fine if you got a faster computer. I'm going to go to Audio and generate that audio preset that I had before. Change this top one to mono, and then go add. Now we've got 4 channels that are mono, and then I'm going to go to Effects and add my timecode overlay. Timecode overlay, I'm just going to leave it as is. I can do bottom, let's do bottom right, and that's saved there. So now that I've customized this, I've done my video, my audio settings, my effects with the timecode burn window, and I've got that saved as Interview QuickTime Proxy. That is my encode preset. So I'm going to hit OK. Now we have to export an ingest preset. This is a little confusing. Ingest presets, encoding presets for Media Encoder. Ingest presets is for Premiere Pro, the custom for customizing proxy footage. So now I'm going to right-click on QuickTime again, and we're going to say we're going to create an ingest preset. It'll pop this up, and I'm going to call this ingest interview QuickTime Proxy. So I know this is the ingest one. So the other one was called an encode preset. This is an ingest preset. We're going to go down to, I'm going to uncheck everything else. We don't want it to transfer. We want it to do we want to transcode files to destination. That's what we're doing here. So I'm going to choose Format. I'm going to do QuickTime. This seems like a big repeat, but now under Format, it's going to bring open the presets that I just created. And one of the presets that I created is the Interview QuickTime Proxy. See how I don't like this as much? It's kind of cool, but it's a little bit of a pain in the butt. I'm going to hit OK. We can do. I'm not going to do my desktop location yet. We're going to set that when it starts encoding because for some reason it just ignores this. We can set if we want to browse for location. I'm going to go to Mr. Fancy. We'll see if it maintains it. I'm going to go to my interviews. So once again, within the same folder of my high quality footage, we don't have to do it on a separate drive. I'm going to do a new folder and call this Proxies. Hit Choose, and I'm going to hit OK, and that ingest preset is created now. So I can now go to User Presets and Groups, and I called it Ingest Interview QuickTime Proxy. Right click on this, say Export Preset, and I'm going to put it in my same folder. I'll put it in my Proxies folder. It'll be easy to find, and save it there. Whew, that's a lot of work. I'm going to hide this. I'm going to hide Media Encoder, go to Premiere, select all my footage, right click, say Proxy, create proxies. We're going to go to Add Ingest Preset, navigate to my Proxies folder. There's my EPR that I created. Select that. It's added it now permanently to my Premiere Pro presets. And there it is right there. I've got a bunch of others in there. But right now, see how it's kind of changed the place? It's asking for a different destination. It kind of ignores the destination I had in my preset. So I'm going to hit Browse, choose my Proxy folder, hit OK. It's going to create the job. It's going to send this to Media Encoder, where it will start encoding. There we go. It's sending a Media Encoder, and it's already started encoding. We're going to let that encode, and then we'll show you how to switch. After this is through encoding, I'm going to show you how to switch between the proxy footage and the high quality footage, which this is kind of the cool part with the proprietary one. So you just kind of have to weigh your options. Like I said, I mostly use the old style way, but this is going to be the Premiere Pro proprietary proxy workflow. And we'll be back in a minute when this is done. All right, guys. Now that I've got everything done, one thing you want to notice here is as it encodes these things, this is what what the proprietary actually does. It adds the name _ proxy to each one of these files. So they've got the same name, so only Premiere is going to understand. You can't use these proxies for editing in another software or DaVinci Resolve or Avid or any other software, because when it tries to relink to the high quality footage, the name has been changed, so only Premiere is going to understand that. So I'm going to quit Media Encoder here, go back to Premiere, and I'm going to open up my little project window here, and we're going to look at something. I'm going to right click in here, right click on the metadata information here, go to Metadata Display, and under Metadata Display we're going to go under Premiere Pro Project Metadata. We're going to scroll down, and there's an actual proxy status in here. And up in the search engine here, I'm going to type proxy, and I'll bring up the metadata properties here, and I'm going to check mark proxy, and it's going to add that to my metadata bar here. You're going to have to scroll over to the right to find it. There it is. You can drag it over, get it closer to your media if you wish to. Get it closer. So now I'm going to put it like right there. And what this does here is it shows you if your media has been encoded to proxy. And right, it says proxy attached. So that means that it's attached, it's reading it, it understands the proxy, and it's there. So from here on out, it's pretty easy. We're going to move my media into a timeline. And here's my media, and right now I've already got it turned on proxy, so let me turn this off and start from scratch. If that's not there right now, you're going to go to this little plus button editor here, and you're going to grab your proxy right here, your toggle proxies, and you're going to drag it down here and drop it. And it will add that, and then hit OK, and now I've got my proxies there. Now all you have to do is hit this toggle, and now it is on proxies. And now when I play back, it's going to play back really quickly. It's going to respond very quickly. But if I go back to high quality footage, it'll get a little more chuggy, a little bit slower. See right there, it's getting a little chuggy, and taking a minute to update because it's such high quality footage. Same as if I'm on a solid state drive right now, so if I play this back, it'll play back pretty well, and it'll eventually start lagging. Now it's starting to lag a little bit. While you're editing, you can turn this on to proxy. You can do your editing, and then when you're done doing your editing, you can just flip that switch, and that is the benefit of using the proprietary software. That's really nice to just quickly flip a switch, and you're editing proxy, and then you're back to your high quality footage, which is really nice. But the only issue here is you actually have to take the high quality and the low quality footage with you. If you take the low quality footage with you and edit just those, and then you try to relink it, it's not going to relink it because they're completely different names. You have to do it all within the software. Do it in this manner, and you have to have the high quality footage ready to flip the switch, so it will go between them, which will take up a lot of hard drive space. But anyway, so that is those two processes of doing proxy footage, the kind of old school way, and the Premiere Pro proprietary proxy way within the software. So if you have any questions, please post them. Thanks for watching.